So now that we've looked at what to look for when you buy your first Copics, how do you stretch your markers? How do you make them go further? Because you can't start it with a full set or a wide range. To begin with, it is hard. When I started out, my sister had Spectrum Noir markers, and so she lent me her markers. And between the blue-green set that I had, I would color my drawings or my stamps with this set when it called for it, and then I would use her sets with it. And the Spectrum Noir markers are really nice. You don't have to use that brand, though. That's also a craft brand that's used. You could pick up Crayola markers or something from Toys R Us or your local stationery store. It doesn't have to be an artist grade marker, but you can mix them. Now, I can tell you when I started out, I colored a lot of things in blue-green, but it is a favorite color, so I didn't mind using it, but I definitely put a lot of miles on these markers. So they are in need of a refill, especially the lighter ones, but that is how I started. So if you want to stretch your markers, if you have not a lot, you can do it that way. You can mix other marker brands with your markers and use your Copics when it calls for it, and use your other brands when you have to fill in those holes. You need a red or a green or something. You don't have those colors on hand. You can use them until you do get your Copic colors in those color families. Now, another way to stretch your markers is if you have a light and a dark. So you went to Michael's and they didn't have the medium. You only have the light and the dark. How do you make those colors go together? So I'm going to use BG10, which is really light, and then a BG13, which is a medium dark tone. And I'm going to show you how to blend those colors together. How to stretch your markers. So if you're starting with your lightest color, and this color is really light, it's very pretty, but it's light. So to make it join up with that medium tone is going to be challenging, and you're going to wish that you had that in-between marker. You'll see when I put this down, you can see those brush strokes very clearly. They're strong and dark, and they don't blend in with that light color above. But you only have 2 markers in this marker range. What do you do? So you can try going over again with your lighter marker, but no matter how you blend, it's just washing out the ink on this darker color. So what you can do is create a midtone with your 2 markers. Take your darker marker and touch the tip to the lighter marker, and then just blend in that middle. And so what you're doing is you're creating a bit of a middle tone as that darker ink brushes off your lighter marker. And then if you come in and add this another layer of your dark, you can see already that the gradient is starting to soften in the middle. And you can stretch your markers this way to create that middle tone. Now, you won't ruin your markers by doing this. The ink, as it flows out, washes the marker clean to the color that it is. So you can see now that we have that gradient from light to dark, and we did that with just 2 markers that were a light and a dark that didn't go together in the beginning. So those look pretty good. You have to work it a little bit more than you do if you had the light, medium, and dark, but it works. It comes together. Now, let's take a look at a light, medium, and a dark, and what that looks like. And so I'm going to switch to my BG15 just because that one is getting a little bit dried out. So I'm going to come in with my lightest color here. Again, I like to put down my light color first. And then coming in with my midtone, going up into that light color. And now I don't have a midtone for this color. So I am going to do the tip to tip method because I don't have that in between. But you can see right away how it's blending out. And then coming in with this darker color really creates that grounding gradient. And I'm not blending this very well, I'm just doing this quickly, but as you can see, you have the light, medium, and dark. And so it creates a lot more depth than the one over here that just has the light and the dark. Or a light medium, if that's what you purchased. If you're looking for an easier way to blend your markers without doing the tip-to-tip method, then buy a light medium or a medium and a dark. Those colors will be closer together to each other and they'll blend easier. So you can see a bit of the difference there between the 2 colors and the 3 colors. So you get more of a deeper gradient. So that's the difference. Now, if you have to switch to the other color family that is next door neighbor to the one that you're looking to purchase, we'll take a look at what that looks like. So let's go with the lightest, which is a blue-green, which is 10. That's the one we used at the top here. And then let's go to maybe a B21. Let's try that. So we'll try a blue and a blue-green. So this is a light and this is a medium. So you can see I have a little bit of that medium tone or that dark tone from previous coloring still on my nib. I'm just gonna brush that out and it blends into that light color, so you won't see that. These markers do come clean, they're great. So laying down my light color, then I'm gonna come in with my medium tone. And that is in the color family next door to that blue-green. And then I'm coming in one more time with my lighter color just to double blend that edge. That's the way I always work. I always put down my lightest color first, then come in with my darker color, and then come in with my lighter color over those 2 intersecting colors, just to blend them together a little bit. So right there you can see what the difference is between this one here that has 2 colors and this one here that has 2 colors with a borrowed color family. So you create something that has a little more interest, visual interest, a little more pop, and is a little more, adds a little more spark to your images. So this is fun to mix these colors. And if I were to purchase in this way, then I would have a marker from the blue-green and a marker from the blue category. So that's not a bad thing either. It's a good way to stretch your markers if you're not able to buy 3 or 2 in the same color category, or you just, or if they're not available when you go to purchase them. Now, another way you can blend your markers is with a colorless blender, and I do want to show you that technique because I do use that sometimes, but I don't use it very often. What I find it's good for is when I'm trying to blend a light color and blend it out to white. So in this instance, I'm going to take Jade Green, which is G2, or sorry, G00. I'm going to come in and create the first application of that Jade Green, and then I'm going to blend it to white. And so I'm going to start working into the marker and pulling out with just the ink of the colorless blender, and then coming down into that space again where I laid down that ink, and then pulling it out again. And so by working back and forth, you can achieve this gradient to white. Sometimes, because this is a darker light color as well, I will use a tip-to-tip method on my colorless blender. I've used this technique when I'm trying to color something that's silver and I didn't have a lot of grays. I've used it when I'm coloring in fairy flowers that are lilies or white. So for example, I did this wedding card, and so I colored the chicks into white, and then I colored the edges of the cake into white, and then I used colorless blender on the silver tray as well. I didn't have a lot of grays. At the time that I made this, I only had 1 gray. And so to stretch that and create the gradient, I blended it out with my colorless blender. I blended out this edging with Colorless blender as well, the lightest blue violet I had, and then just pulling it out from the edge. Now, one other thing you can use your Colorless blender for is if you make a mistake and go outside the lines, you can clean it up with a Colorless blender. So I'm going to color this circle, and I'm just going to go outside the lines there. And I'll show you how I fix this with my Colorless blender. So what I do is I use my Colorless blender and I start to lay down ink outside of the line, and I work up until I hit the edge of that black outline to this side of it. And then I swish the brush into that pink area that went over the top. And so what happens is the ink that I've laid down with the Colorless blender on the outside is creating a puddle of marker ink. And so the ink that went over the line is being pulled out into that ink. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that your inner part of your circle is dry. Because what's happening right now is it's trying to pull out some of that stuff that I had colored that hadn't dried. But as you can see, the line on the outside has gotten weaker, and so it's lightened that color a bit. So this is a nice, easy technique. Now, of course, it's easier to use with lighter colors than darker, but I have cleaned up some pretty crazy messes with this Colorless blender, just pulling out that puddle of ink. And what happens is the pigment just gets diluted into the clear ink and becomes lighter. So it acts sort of as an eraser. So those are my basic blending techniques. If you do use the light, medium, dark method, this is the most common and the easiest, most versatile that you can use. Using a light and a medium, or a medium and a dark, a light and a dark, and doing tip-to-tip markers is also very easy to do. Or if you borrow from the next door neighbor of your color family, that creates more visual interest, gives you some more interesting color combinations. You can do some neat experimenting with that. So those are my recommendations for blending. These are the basic ways, and I pretty much use all of these methods. I don't really stray outside this too much unless I'm doing something very specific, a specific texture or something. But these are definitely key ones that I use a lot. So now that we've taken a look at Copic markers, we've got you started with your first set and you know what to buy and how to blend, let's have a bit of fun and check out my favorite colors. So that'll be in the next video, and you'll see some colors that I can't live without and some that are just self-indulgent choices. I hope to see you there. If you did find this video helpful, let me know by giving it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to be notified as I post more videos to my channel. Thanks for watching.